Welcome to the Pretty Intense podcast. You're going to need to buckle your 6-point harness for this one because it was a very interesting conversation with Rich Cooper. He is an author. He wrote a book called The Unplugged Alpha. He also has a YouTube channel, Entrepreneurs in Cars, as he does like cars. He also has a podcast, The Unplugged Alpha. I've been watching his stuff on YouTube for a while. I just thought it would be a cool conversation because every now and again, I like to get somebody on here that, well, I think we might have an interesting and possibly contentious conversation. You know, we definitely disagreed on some things, which is going to be interesting, but we agreed on some things too. You know, here's the deal. This is an alpha signal, is that he just believes what he believes. And I think that's like a sign of anyone being an alpha, is you just essentially you have conviction, you know who you are, you know what you believe in. I think intelligent alphas are open-minded and able to change their mind with enough information. So I'll let you decide if that's his personality or not. That's where I come from. I wanted to do the interview tthinking that I hope he changes my mind on some stuff, because what it will mean is that I learned something. So you'll have to listen all the way to the end to see if that happened. Enjoy the episode with Rich. Check out his podcast and his book. Please hit subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Oh boy, let me know what you think in the comments. Today's Pretty Intense partner is Athletic Greens. I take AG1 by Athletic Greens literally every day. I gave AG1 a try because I wanted to nourish my gut health. I wanted to have more energy. I wanted to add more micronutrients to my body. I take it first thing in the morning before I have coffee and then before I go work out. It makes me feel so good. I'm giving my body the nutrition it craves. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go to athleticgreens.com/prettyintense. That's athleticgreens.com/prettyintense. Check it out.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for doing this, by the way. I'm really I think this is going to be like a really fascinating conversation.
I love having these conversations with women, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, I've done a few of them. So
how come?
what
is it that you like?
There's just a different series of questions and enlightenment that happens. I think men wake up a different way from women. Men and women are different. So guys, usually they're like, oh, I think I understand now why I got those results that I got. Whereas women are sort of like, that's interesting. I didn't really think of it from that perspective.
So do you like the women's questions or do you like women's answers?
I like the dialogue. I like the conversation itself. Yeah.
Do you like that it could get contentious, or do you like that you could learn something new?
I love contention.
I knew you were going to say that. That's why this will probably be an interesting conversation. But I mean, right off the bat, I feel like I'm a pretty rational person. I'm not a feminist at all, but I am eternally fascinated by psychology, by evolutionary psychology, by men and women and the masculine feminine, and just like all the crazy things that are going on in the world. You know, you said yes to this interview, and the nature of the things that you talk about have to do with the dynamics with strong women or various different other variables in that sort of realm. So I'm curious about it all, and most selfishly, how I fit in.
I was going to ask you a question for you. So what brought you to my content? Why did you want to have me on for a podcast?
In your podcast, you say that every now and again, I've heard you say it's probably mostly men listening. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there and I'm laughing because I'm like, no, as a woman, I'm curious to know how men really think, mm-hmm. and what men really want. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like in life, at least in my position, it feels like every man says they want a strong, confident woman until they get one. Mm-hmm. And then it's maybe not the same reality, and it's challenging.
Right.
And not because I think that I or a woman is challenging a man, but because it's triggering. Because it isn't easy. It isn't, you aren't just the automatic dominant. Mm-hmm. And I don't really look at it like someone has to be, but an ego gets threatened.
This will be a fun talk.
So what experiences led you to the conversations you have, the work that you do? Was there one experience? Was it a series of it? Is it a lifetime?
That's a great question. So there's probably 3 things that led me to where I arrived at and what I talk about on my YouTube channel and the stuff that I put in my book and my podcast and all that. And I subscribe to a sequence of what I've identified as comforting lies. Like I built the safe world theory around if you just do the right thing. Like I was an entrepreneur for 20 years. I ran Canada's largest, most successful debt settlement company, multiple awards for hypergrowth, for culture, for employee happiness, all that sort of stuff. And we were saving people a whole ton of money getting out of credit card debt. And there was credit card companies and financial institutions that started lobbying the government to change the legislation. And I thought, that was interesting because we're doing the right thing. We're saving people loads of money. We're getting them out of credit card debt. They get to avoid bankruptcy. And here the banks and financial institutions are trying to change the laws to stop that. And that was like one of the first things that sort of started to unplug me from life's comforting lies. There was also the divorce as well, because most men don't really get what they expect. You think, okay, well, we'll just untie the knot. We'll go separate ways and that'll be fine. But that expectation isn't met in reality. And then I guess the third thing was after I went through the lobbying effort, tried to deal with the government, the financial institutions, and the divorce, and I saw what family law was like, I got involved in another long-term relationship after that with a single mom. And safe world theory again collapsed. Bunch of comforting lies. You ego invest into her and her kids and try to do the right thing and step up, sort of stand up sort of guy, and you get betrayed and lied to and all that sort of stuff. So that's what sort of led me down this rabbit hole of, oh, let me see if I can get my head wrapped around why I keep letting myself down, like why I keep getting disappointed around business, entrepreneurship, women, life in general. And it's like, it's not them. I'm not pointing and sputtering at the world or blaming anybody. It's me trying to take ownership for it. And that's what like pushed me down this rabbit hole of the red pill, the manosphere. I now call it the manoswamp, evolutionary psychology, all this sort of stuff. So it's been an interesting journey, which has, sort of gotten me to where I'm at today.
Mm-hmm. Explain right off the top, just sort of like red pill, blue pill, black pill, what that is.
Oh my gosh. You know how many pills there are now? Everybody has an ego investment in a certain belief that they then label as a pill. And when you take that pill, then that is a representation of what your ego investments are. So the basis are red pill, blue pill. And that comes from the movie The Matrix, where what Neo offers Morpheus, the blue pill, the red pill. Blue pill, you plug back into the matrix and fall back asleep through life, sort of thing. Red pill, you unplug and you go down the rabbit hole and see how far you really go. So that's where the notion of the red pill really comes from. Then you get these guys that are like black pilled, purple pilled, orange pilled, white pilled. And it's like, to me, it's reality and lies. So, you can color your pill whatever you want. There's just reality and there's lies.
So that's red and blue?
Basically, yeah.
What was your first like red pill moment?
I'm gonna say it probably started with the divorce when you married the wrong person. Okay, this isn't going to work out. I don't want to spend the rest of my life trying to fix something that's not fixable. Let's just untie this knot and call it a day. It's not as easy as that. And I think the first red pilling moment was when I got on the phone with my family lawyer, and he did the prenup for me too. And I got on the phone with him, a few years later, and I said, look, I think this isn't going to work out. We need to get out of this. How do we get the ball rolling, sort of thing. And it was a half an hour conversation. I'm driving my car and I was in a position where I was just like, are you serious? Like this is how things go in family law. I thought you just got divorced. I didn't realize that you've got issues to deal with, like false domestic violence charges. You're probably not going to see your kid. If you're a father, you don't want to go to court. You're going to lose, all of these things that sort of popped up in the conversation. I'm like, well, hold on a second. I thought men and women were equal. Like, didn't feminism level the playing field for everybody and we can just part ways? But no, it's not that simple. So that was probably the first red pilling moment. I think it's also one of the first red pilling moments for a lot of guys too, is when they start going through the divorce machine as well.
There's definitely a lot of sticky areas in there, and whether if kids are involved and sort of like the direction that usually goes with custody, or I don't know. I have been divorced, but I don't have kids. But also just, even talking about like allegations, like women do get away with a lot. I really think there's a lot on both sides. Like there's a lot that men get away with. There's a lot that women get away with. And it's a matter of just stopping the bullshit of getting away with something and just have integrity and have honor and do the right thing.
That's what you'd hope for. But the reality isn't that from the perspective of usually the leave-or, because there's a leavee and a leave-or.
Yeah.
And the person leaving the other that wants to stay in the relationship doesn't want it to end. So you're in a bad bargaining position if you're a dude leaving a woman and she wants you to stay, and family law is almost completely on her side. Well, to be honest, family law is mostly completely on the side of the person that makes more money, that brought more to the table. If you have kids, it's also on the side of the person that gave birth to the kid. In most instances, because women are hypergamous by nature, they tend to marry across and up on the socioeconomic scale. So they tend to marry up to guys for the most part. Not all women do. So guys are in a position where they have to deal with that whole, okay, well, what do I deal with? Like, how do I deal with everything I brought to the table? How do I deal with my future income? The notion that someone that you married for a few years has rights to a decade or decades or even a lifetime of your future income is absolutely absurd to me, given that men and women are equal under the guise of feminism today.
Let's talk about that hypergamy. I basically sit here in my life and go, I'm fucked. Like, what do I do? Right? If a woman dates lateral and up and a woman dates lateral and up and a man dates sort of lateral and down when it comes to success and finances, status, and a woman is intelligent, that hurts her, earning, intelligence, whatever. Like, what do I do?
I'll tell guys in honesty that you're in a better position to marry a woman that's on the same par as you, if not higher. Right? Because that almost removes most of the risk of losing your nest egg and any future income. My ex-wife's a lawyer, she's very successful. So that really wasn't a huge issue as far as, nest egg and division of assets. It was more dealing with, the child custody issue because we've got a daughter. But for women that, like I assume that you've done well in life, you've raced cars. I don't know, what the total record is, although I am a huge car enthusiast, but I don't watch a lot of car racing. It's weird because I love driving supercars, but I don't like watching other people drive supercars. I don't find it as interesting as driving them myself.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I don't watch that much racing, but now that I do more commentating and I'm a host I do a little bit for F1, NASCAR, and IndyCar. I obviously keep up with everything, but
yeah. I really find the job they did on the Netflix series, Drive to Survive, really good on the Formula One thing. But it's got to be difficult for you if you're a successful woman to find a guy and get into a long-term relationship, because the thing with successful older guys is, like, men peak a little bit later on in life than women do, right? Like, men reach their sexual market peak in their late 30s. And the thing that women don't like is they peak in their early 20s. And that's just an unfortunate reality of the sexes. And it's always been that way. Men have always been success objects to women, and women have always been beauty objects to men. So men tend to date younger women.
Go into peak, though? What does peak mean?
Well, men are valued based on their competency skills, what they can do, like that little dent that they can put in the universe sort of thing. Whereas men don't usually care about women's degrees. They don't usually show a lot of interest in their degrees on the wall, framed in mahogany with little letters after the name, sort of thing. It's grand and it's noble and all that sort of stuff, but there's no guy that ever said, oh yeah, look at the degree on her, right? Guys will look at a woman and say, look at whatever on her, she's walking away, sort of thing. That's how men operate. They're visual in the sense that they see women as beauty objects, and they've always been treated as beauty objects, even though society tries to change that today.
So peak then for women's appearance is early 20s.
Value, actually.
It's value.
Yeah, it's actually based on a lot of... I'm trying
to understand what the peak is, and if peak is fertility is peak, money is peak, beauty is what's the peak?
Well, that's the definition that they're trying to change today, right? Because women have valued men based on what they can bring to the table, right? Like what resources they have available to them to provide and preside over the family and the children and protect and all that sort of stuff. Women's value has historically always been around their beauty and their fertility. When they survey cross-culturally, across all continents, all religions, and they show a lineup of every man from 18 to like 75, I think the survey was done under, a lineup of women from all ages, all the way up to 75 from 20, they universally almost all pick about 22, 23-year-old women, as far as like beauty standards. So that's just the way that society has always operated. So as a beautiful, attractive woman, maybe, such as yourself, that's also had a successful career, that's competent, influential on social media, does commentating, let's say on racing events and stuff like that. There's not a lot of guys that are like, oh my God, she's her voice or her commentary on that program is so valuable to me. What guys look at is the beauty aspect of a woman, right? Like that's why women wear makeup, dye their hair, wear push-up bras and accentuate, their body curves and their lines with things like heels and stuff like that. As much as society wants to change that today and say things like you're beautiful at any weight, like that's one of the big lies that I think that feminism tells women is you're beautiful at any size. It's just not true, right? There are standards that men are drawn to when it comes to beauty, and obesity is not one of them.
It's not healthy either. Like
it's not healthy. Like I wouldn't want to invite a woman that's obese and diabetic into my life. I don't want to deal with that. There's a Evo psychologist. His name's Dr. Warren Farrell. He's written several books. I think one of the ones that stood out was The Myth of Male Power, and he's done a few others like The Boy Crisis and things like that. And one of the observations that he made over his career, like decades of studying all this material, is basically that you can distill it down to that men are success objects and women are beauty objects, and that's how the sexes view each other.
Do you think that's right?
Doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. That's just how we've always viewed each other throughout history.
I don't know. I mean, I think we don't grow and evolve without a discussion, without changes. So it would imply that there's nothing wrong with anything and that there's no need to grow and evolve. And, I think that there's still a discussion around that. Is that the right thing? Is that right? Because I think that, when we expand on that and we go into like value, I think I saw something that you had written that said, like, if you took sex out of the relationship, 90% of women would have nothing to offer.
Yeah. And if you took money out of the relationship, then 90% of men would have nothing to offer women.
Explain that.
That's actually something that I came across in comedy, believe it or not. I get a lot of my material from comedy that I, summarize in my videos and my social media. So if men lost their status, their success, the wealth, their influence, their competency in society, then 90% of women probably wouldn't stay with those guys. Like the reason why women generally leave relationships and marriages, and women leave marriages 80% of the time. It's not generally men that leave marriages. It's generally women that leave. And when women leave, it's because they feel like they can do better with another guy, right? This guy that I'm married to, that I've had my 2.1 kids in the white picket fence and the station wagon, he just sits around and watches sports all day. He's put on 150 pounds. He can't keep a job down. He doesn't even know how to change a light bulb. I have to call my dad to come over and take care of stuff like that. These are the sorts of things that women don't want to deal with, right? So when I speak to men, I'm constantly telling them chase excellence, right? Like you can't let your guard down. You can't retire. You cannot stop, pursuing passion. You cannot stop putting a dent in the universe, because if your wife, your woman, your girlfriend wakes up in the morning and she looks at you and thinks to herself, I'm stuck with a loser, there's a good chance she's probably going to leave, because marriage isn't forever anymore. The knot is untied all the time. We're not particularly good as a species at monogamy. So that's where that notion comes from. And on the flip side of the coin, I mean, if a woman is like 90% of guys would leave relationships if sex was removed from the equation. If his wife or his girlfriend all of a sudden announced and said, look, I'm just going to become celibate. I've gotten right with God. I don't want to have sex anymore. I'm going to become, the Virgin Mary, whatever. He's going to be like, that's interesting, because the reason why I'm here is for access to easy, frequent, and, amazing sex. That's why guys get married.
That's it?
That's the main reason why guys get married. Believe it or not, they think that when they see, the biggest complaint that guys have when they get married, if you take a look at their Google search history, is they start looking up words like, why doesn't my wife want to bang me? Why doesn't my wife want to have sex with me? How do I get my wife to have sex with me? Could you imagine being married as a man and you're Google searching, how do I get my wife to have sex with me? There's a lot of marriages out there that are completely sexless, right? So when you remove sex from the equation, and the sad part of it is a lot of guys, they won't change that. They'll just resort to something like pornography. So they won't leave the relationship. They won't end the marriage. It's generally not to their advantage to do that, because they'll lose so much. So they'll just stay.
Lose what?
Could be wealth, could be future wealth, could be access to their kids. It depends. Could be all those things.
So you're saying there's nothing else that a woman offers if it isn't sex? They don't offer comfort. They don't offer safety. They don't offer companionship. They don't offer taking care of things. They don't offer planning nice things for someone. They don't offer cooking or cleaning or
I didn't say that.
Like anything like that?
No, I didn't say that. But women don't offer safety to me. I offer safety to women. Yeah, but all the other stuff you're talking about, comfort, companionship, love, all that sort of stuff, of course. But the main reason why men get into relationships with women is for sex.
What areas of value is it that you believe a woman has to be more than sex?
Well, I have greater
Just,
standards than just sex, right? Like I have a
yeah,
girlfriend.
exactly.
She's got great culinary skills. She's fun to be around. We laugh, we joke, we have similar interests. Like I like cycling, so we go for bike rides a lot in the summertime. So it's beyond just sex, but the main reason why men mate select a woman is because of sexual intimacy. That's just the way, like that's why we're here on the earth to scatter seed, right? We're not here to build skyscrapers and roads and drive electric cars. We're here to scatter seeds. Like that's our biological imperative.
What do you think about the idea that the world is overpopulated? Do you believe in that, or do you believe it's not getting populated enough?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of the stuff you hear in mainstream media, there's just so much of it that I really question now, especially since the scamdemic and that, that game they pulled on us a few years ago. It seems pretty obvious to me when I'm on a flight and I look out the window, the amount of barren land there is out there that we don't
Right.
occupy. So I don't really buy this, this notion that we're overpopulating the earth, at this stage of the game. When I'm on a flight and look at the window and there's humans everywhere, like ants, then I'll say, okay, maybe we have a problem, but it seems like it's not really an issue. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I don't think so either. I think that, I mean, women are getting married later. They're having kids later. They're not having as many. I don't think couples are having as many kids as they used to. They're not needed for farming and taking care of the property and various different things that I think that in many, many decades ago was probably more important. I think that fertility is probably down in general across the board, but especially in men, testosterone's definitely down a large degree. You probably know more about that statistic than I do.
It's brutal.
So I don't think that it's driving the numbers up. I think it's
You want
probably
to, I
down.
mean, if you want to go down the rabbit hole on things like testosterone, I can blow your mind on that one too.
I'd love it to blow my mind.
Testosterone levels in men have been declining massively, especially in the last 60, 70 years. They know that testosterone levels 1,000 years ago were much, much higher than what they are today because they can tell by two reasons. One is the bone structure in the jawline of men. That men will have a chiseled square sort of jawline when they have high testosterone. The other thing too is the ring finger on men. This one here should be longer than the middle finger if they have high testosterone. Exactly. Yeah. So most men, myself included, have shorter ring fingers than they do middle fingers. There's very few men that naturally have higher testosterone today, but back in the the years back 1,000 years ago, let's say, you're at a dig site, doing your excavation, you're going to notice that it's easy to spot male skeletons from female skeletons because of those two distinguishing factors, along with the hip ratios too. So there's lots of things that have been happening in the last 50 or 60 years that have contributed to that even further. And it's like, there's a great author. His name's Dr. Anthony J. And he wrote a book called Estrogeneration, and he breaks down in many of the areas that are contributing to this. And it's mostly chemicals that we're consuming on our skin, in our body, through agriculture, plastics. Like plastics leach into a lot of foods and liquids. And even though they call them BPA free, they still convert to estrogen in your body. One of the biggest contributors happens to be the tap water. And most people don't know this, but most people know the vast majority of women are on birth control. In many provinces and states, it's free. The government just gives it away, for free, like it's candy. So women are taking their birth control, and as they urinate, the hormone, the leftover hormone gets urinated out as it's excreted, goes through the sewage and septic system. They clean out, large particles of poop and all that sort of stuff, anything that gets flushed down, but they can't clean out hormones, right? They can, but they don't. It's interesting because I asked him, when I was talking to him, I said, do they know at these water treatment facilities that there's estrogen in the water? And he said, yes, they know, but they're not doing anything about it. So there's a role that the state itself plays in the softening and the weakening of the Western male. And it's not good for women either, by the way, because now you've got women that have elevated levels of estrogen as well, too, which aren't particularly, serving them. But
sure,
his work and his content mostly, talks about men. And that's why you get these, younger guys. Like, I don't know how many guys I've come across now in their late 20s and 30s that are telling me they've had to use IVF to conceive, both them and their wife. And that's unusual, right?
Does it affect erections too?
It does. It does. If you're estrogen dominant and you don't have high enough levels of testosterone, you're going to have erectile dysfunction, right? I mean, one of the biggest things that guys notice if they go on TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, is erection quality improves almost immediately, right? So there's a huge market out there for pharmaceuticals. They make lots of money off it. The government now has, a softer, more compliant society that's more agreeable. They got people to wear face diapers for 2 years and stand on dots and take experimental jabs. What is it? 78% of the world complied with that. Huge
That's
numbers,
crazy.
right? But high testosterone males.
Is that indicative of the percentage of people that are considered unplugged?
That's the percentage of the people that are plugged in. That's what I would call them plugged in. 78%, and the rest of them are probably unplugged, or they're getting there.
Do you think there's a conspiracy for population control? Do you think that somebody like Bill Gates is trying to wipe people out? I mean, I live on the West Coast, and I'm like, it's been raining forever. I live in Arizona. It's sunny every day here. I'm like, nah, I think it's chemtrails. I think they're polluting the air and making it rain and making us miserable by not letting the sun shine, because it's super abnormal.
Yeah, there's all kinds of theorists out there and tinfoil hat wearers that have their own interesting theories. And I think, to some degree, to give a room of authoritarians credit for, engineering the pussification of the Western male, sort of thing is the way that I like to call it. I don't know that there's those guys that are doing that, but it seems awfully convenient that it's all these things happening simultaneously. Like, they know that seed oils are not good for you. They know that putting oxybenzones in sunscreen converts to estrogen in the body, but they still sell it. Like, they know that certain foods are bad for you.
I mean, you can't say there isn't a conspiracy for it, though, because like Bill Gates makes computers, but then he started making medicine, and then now he's buying farmland, all the farmland.
Right. So, something is going on there. Something is definitely going on with some of these elitists, the Klaus Schwab crowd.
Give me sort of like the description of the unplugged male and what they stand for and the kind of personality they have.
Well, the guy that's unplugged, that is viewed as an alpha by society and by women, is living his life on his terms, understands exactly what is going on, or questions what is going on until he understands it correctly. Doesn't comply, doesn't conform, isn't one of these NPC types that gets outraged over everything the mainstream media pumps out at you.
NPC,
these like these clones, these sheeple. They say, Putin bad, he invaded Ukraine. All of a sudden, everybody on social media changes their social media profile to "I stand with Ukraine." Okay, great. Okay. Do you know the full? Like, these are your NPC sort of crowds. So these are the guys that are paying attention to these things, are essentially what I call drawing a perimeter around themselves and divides us versus them. And that's not a popular answer with people that are looking for answers like, well, what do we do to solve the problem? How do we fix this? How do we return to a place that our grandparents, sort of lived in? And I don't think we can. I don't think that, small crowds of the unplugged, if that's what, you want to call them, can get together, rally the troops and fix things. If you're going to rely on the government to do anything like that, I think the US's best chance of fixing something like that was the guy that was your last president. And let's be honest, he didn't do anything when the country was burning down. He just stood there and let the cities fight over things and burn themselves down. And he didn't do that much, my view, in my estimation anyway. Although he talked a big talk and had a great talk and a great pitch and all that stuff and make America great again. I've been to the States a few times in the last few years, and I don't think it's great again. It's the same as what it was 10, 15, every other visit that I've ever had, right? It's just sort of trending in that direction. So
I don't think anything really changes that much.
It doesn't. Yeah.
It's just like, it's this distraction. I mean, I think it's all distraction. It's like, goes so red, it goes so blue. It's like
the pendulum swings.
Interest rates go up, they go down. The Federal Reserve comes in and fixes things. It's like, it's just chasing your tail and distraction.
If they want to impress me with change, get out of my life, keep your hands out of my pocket, my bank account, and just leave me alone. Right? Yeah. That'll impress me, with change. then I'll start saying, okay, now we're heading in the right direction, but more of the stand on your dots, wear a face diaper, take 5 of these jabs. You're not allowed to say this. Oh, you can't address me this way because I have pronouns and that hurts my feelings. And then you've got the alphabet crowd and like all these other crowds out there that are always offended by something. It's like, that's predominant now. Right. And I want to control my part of the universe, the people that I love, my family, the people that I've drawn the perimeter around, us versus them. So I'm more of a enjoy the decline kind of guy. It's like, they're going to do what they're going to do. I don't have any impact on that. Let them do what it is that they got. I've got impact on my inner circle and what I can control and what I believe. That's what I'll handle, sort of thing. So that's
enjoy the decline, meaning.
Well, it seems like with the direction that society's going and what they're doing to humanity, that it is on a decline. Like, let's be honest, like things like, we talked earlier about feminism, right? Like feminism was an equality movement. And I think it's gotten to that part. Like, would you agree as a woman?
That it is equal, or that feminism is still alive, or
men and women can do anything, right? I mean, you want to drive a race car? You did it.
Right.
So
I do believe, I do believe you can. I think probably again, I'm not a feminist, so but I mean, maybe the judgment of it exists, but there's pretty much nothing you can't do.
Correct. So that's my point. Like feminism has gone past the point of equality. Like men and women can pretty much do anything they want. We're different in different regards. We've got strengths and weaknesses, but there's really nothing stopping anybody from doing something that they want. There's people that have this oppression mentality, like this victim mindset. And the unfortunate part with that is if you have a victim mindset, you have to have an oppressor. And if you're a feminist, then your oppressor is automatically going to be men. So now you're hating men, sort of thing. So I think that the feminist movement has gone past equality and now turned into a supremacy movement where it's demanding the subjugation of men. And in many cases, some people would argue white men. So it's not a great trajectory, and I don't see that changing anytime soon, which is why I'm more of the, let them do what they're going to do. The mainstream media has, full control, with the exception of places like Twitter, I think, which has changed for the better with Elon Musk, taking it over and trying to balance it. But I think we've seen most social media outlets and most mainstream media parrot what liberalism wants it to parrot, what toxic feminism wants it to parrot. It's always looking for some victim. It's always looking for the subjugation and weakening of males. So it just seems to be more of a supremacy movement than a movement about equality anymore. And I don't know if you agree with that. Like, what do you think about that statement? I'm curious on your thoughts.
I think generally culture is living in very much a victim mentality, identity politics spiral of like, there's always something to glom onto to defer accountability. And I think that's probably one of the biggest problems
now, isn't it?
Everyone's a victim of something.
Right.
And there's a reason for lacking success or lacking progress or lacking whatever it is that you want to put your finger on. You could come up with a reason.
Right.
And I think probably in my own life, accountability has been what I've been most proud of. Like whether it's accountability for my emotions, accountability for my reality that I live in every space. It's like, it's up to me. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I stopped looking to other people to help me make that happen, then it's like pretty freeing.
Where did you get that from?
Where did I get that from?
Yeah.
Probably enough time pointing the finger, probably enough time. I'm pretty like good in the professional realm of things, but personal realm, when I stopped pointing the finger at other people and started just asking what's my part in this, then if you become liberated, happier.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Yeah.
And most people don't live life that way. It's somebody else's fault that they're at where they're at.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I think a lot of society has conditioned themselves to believe and understand now. It's like, if that guy over there has money, then he's bad because money is the root of all evil. Or if that guy over there is in fit and healthy shape with 6-pack abs at 50 years old, what's he trying to compensate for? Why does he think he needs to do that? Who is he trying to impress? Right. Sort of. Mm-hmm. So there's all this pointing and sputtering at different people out there, and envy and jealousy it's a horrible emotion, and I see a lot of it out there. I obviously have an online presence. Like I'm getting 7 to 10 million views a month on the stuff that I'm doing. So I get hate, right? And, I'm
and
always,
some
yeah,
girls,
yeah. Well, we'll figure out if you're a hater, if you're a liker by the end of this podcast.
I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated. So
yeah,
it's much more on liking than hating, because I'm fascinated. I love the discussion.
Got it. Yeah. So I get hate and I get love, obviously, but I mean, like, the haters are the ones that I'm always interested in, because it's like, okay, well, if this person's criticizing me, then where is this coming from?
Sure.
Like, would I want to trade my life for your life? What do you do for a living? What have you accomplished? What do you look like? What are your views and opinions? And it's funny because, there's a digital footprint. So you can click through on people. You can click through on them on social media, on YouTube videos. You can see what they subscribe to, what they watch. Mm-hmm. You can see what their tweets are all about on Twitter. And it's pretty obvious to me that jealousy and envy, like all this hate, always comes from beneath you, because nobody ever gets jealous of a loser. People only get envious and jealous of somebody that they want to be, or to be like, or to have things that they have, sort of thing. So I find this dynamic interesting today, where it's like people spend a lot of time, effort, and resources trying to bring somebody else down. And it's like, wouldn't it be a lot easier just bring yourself up to their level?
Well, what does it take to do that? What does it take in your life? I'm guessing, obviously, you're in that space. So what is it that tips them over? Because I think some of the problem is, it's not that people don't want to get better. It's not that people don't want the pathway forward. They don't actually know they need it.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, because it's they don't need it. They don't know how to do it. Has it been like squeezed out of them? Like, is it something that's been engineered out of them through through their upbringing? One of the things that's changed culturally over the last couple of generations is we have more kids today raised in a single parent household than we ever have in the entirety of history. Most households in my dad's and grandparents' generation, obviously, were not single parent households. Most households today are single parent households, and they're mostly moms.
Sure. Well, they've probably progressively gotten smaller, just in the community scope. To further back would be like grandparents and uncles and aunts and cousins. And like, it's shrunk all the way down to one parent, essentially.
Yeah. And they're not doing a great job. I mean, the results are in. Most, like, the vast majority, like, when it comes to like high school year kids, the vast majority of gang activity, teenage pregnancies, runaways, terrible marks in school, incarceration, they're all from single parent households. And if you remove the father from the household, what do you think's going to happen? Right. There's an interesting story that I heard one time about the almost extinction. I think it was a white rhinoceros in Africa. I might have butchered, the breed of rhino, but it was a rhino. And poachers were killing off male adult elephants for their ivory tusks. And what ended up happening was the young male elephants were charging these rhinos just out of fun, just out of shits and giggles, because there was no adult males to reel them in and keep control of them. So they found, when they started to reintroduce adult males and they got rid of the poaching, the white rhinos stopped dying off because the young adult males stopped charging and killing them. So you need men and women in a good society. It's required. And the problem is that, guys were considered the head of the household at one point, right? They were the leaders. They were the ones that were respected and looked upon. But today, men are mocked. I mean, I grew up on a steady diet of sitcom. You probably saw shows like, Home Improvement, Tim Taylor, The Cosby Show, stuff like that when you're growing up. And the fathers were really always portrayed to me as a bumbling idiots, right? And I think, that's just one of the small elements that have contributed to the change and the decline of the West, right?
I think this is a good time to talk about roles. It's something I'm curious in my own life about. I've asked many people that, but like, what is a man and a woman's role in a relationship?
That's a great question, because those roles, they try to overlap them now. One of the words that really grinds my gears is partner. I don't know about you, but whenever I hear somebody say, "Oh, my partner," okay, is it your husband? Are you lesbian? Is she a woman? Like, why are we using the word partner? Like, why aren't we using husband, my boyfriend, my man, my woman, my wife, my babe? Whatever it happens to be.
I mean, it'd be to share. It'd be that, for instance, say you're married, you have kids, or you're together, you have kids, whatever it is. And, the dad is like, I'm going to babysit. It's like, no, you're going to be a father. You're not going to babysit. Like, they're right. Like, do you think that do I always have to wash dishes? Do you always
Well,
have to take the garbage out? You don't. I can do that. You can wash dishes. Like it doesn't, I think partner is implying
yeah.
that we're in this together and that we pick up the pieces when we need to. And it's not always going to be these roles for this person, these roles for that person. We're going to help each other. That's the point of being a partner.
Yeah, that's the ego investment that you have in that story. So let me sort of dive down that rabbit hole a little bit, because I think for the vast majority of history, a friend of mine calls them pink jobs and blue jobs, right? Like he does the blue jobs, wife does the pink jobs. He's cutting the grass, shoveling the snow, taking care of the car maintenance. She's running the kids to the doctor's appointments, preparing meals, stuff like that. So, and that's fine because, men have strengths and women have strengths.
Agreed.
And there's a reason why the vast majority of men are in fields like roofing, oil rigs, construction, engineering, all this sort of stuff. And women are more into nursing and childcare and teaching and stuff like that. And that's like one of the big complaints that feminism has about the world is, women are paid 70 or 80 cents on a dollar for every dollar that a man makes, sort of thing. It's like, no, if you're working 14 days straight on an oil rig, 12 hours a day, and you're working at a childcare center for 7 hours, just, feeding some kids and, herding some cats in the playground, he's probably going to make more money than you. So let's not go there. Right. So,
I mean, I got paid more than most men, so I don't subscribe to that argument.
Yeah. And there's certain fields where women do get paid more than most men. Like I know a guy that's
not usually race car driving.
Maybe you're right. I don't know much about what that is, but but I mean, you also had GoDaddy sponsorships. You had a lot of other opportunities to increase your income too, right? But there are certain fields where women do make more money than men in the exact same field. Like I have a friend that spent a few years in the porn industry, and the amount of money that women make as porn actors is significantly more than what men do, right?
So they want to watch because there's more people watching them. It's just
exactly. Demand. Yeah, there's more demand because that's what people are watching, not watching the dude.
I get it.
So as far as like the roles goes, back to your original question, I mean, for you, it's different though, Danica, because one of the things that I notice with you that other women do that you don't do is most women start sentences with, I feel like. And you'll notice this when you go back and you watch this video, but every time you start a sentence is, I think. And rational thought comes from, I think. So you're going to have a different perspective from the majority of women that want to be wives, that want to be stay at home and make babies and take care of a household, sort of thing, because they're going to do the I feel like I feel like this and that sort of thing, the other thing. So you'll have a slightly different perspective, and there's going to be a ideology of partnership in some of your thinking because of your accomplishments, because you're successful too, right? So I get that that's where you're coming from, but for most of society, it's usually blue jobs and pink jobs, right?
Yep. That exists at home like when I'm with someone, that happens.
Yeah.
He's like, no, great. Let me take that garbage. I'm going to get that. I'm like, okay.
There's a certain degree of ownership that you have to take in a relationship as a man. Like one of the things that I found myself doing over the years when I kind of dove down this rabbit hole and got into Evo Psych and the whole red pill stuff, it's like, if I'm walking down the street with my girl and she's on the outside close to the road where traffic's coming, I'll flip her around and put her on the inside, and I'll stand on the outside to protect her. Right. So that's a man's role. I would not expect a woman to do that. Like that's not equal partnership. That is my job to protect you. Right. So, there's certain things where it's like, sure, you want to take out the garbage, take out the garbage. It's fine. Right. But I'm not going to ask you to shovel the driveway or operate the snowblower, things like that. You know what I mean?
What do you think's being triggered in a woman if she's like, I got it? Or like, what, you think I can't do that? I mean, I've been guilty of saying like, I got it, but I'm not one to say like, you think I can't. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say. It's just sometimes it's a waste of time. I'm halfway to the garbage can or whatever the situation may be. But what is being like, we're going to go both sides here, but what is being triggered, do you think, in a woman that she, like, what's the solution for this mindset?
Well, the solution and what's created are two different things. So let's deal with what's created. So I think that a lot of where we're at today, where it's like, the strong, independent woman sort of narrative, like the boss girl, I think a lot of that has come from, women hearing for decades now that men and women are the same. Woman can do anything a man can do. A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle, sort of thing. And that's where you get these strong, independent women where they're like, I got it. I can take care of it, sort of thing, right? Like, I don't need help with that. Leave me alone, get your hands off it, sort of thing. And that's going to be problematic in the relationship, because at the end of the day, she really doesn't like, do you really want to take the garbage out?
No one wants to take the garbage out.
Right. You know what I mean? Like, I'll take the garbage out when it's garbage day. Don't sweat it.
What is it that leads to a strong partnership that a man and a woman should agree on as far as the roles in the relationship go?
I think it's a conversation that you should have before you get into a live-in type of relationship, right? It's like, look, for me, it's pretty clear. I'm a leader. I'm going to take on, the blue jobs, let's say, right? I don't need you, swapping out the snow tires for the summer tires. I don't need you, picking up heavy things. I'll pick up the heavy things. I got it, right? I'm built that way. But I need you to apply those amazing culinary skills that you have to make dinner for me, right? Because I like to eat, right? So for me, like, when I was selecting a girlfriend, one of the things that I was looking at as far as criteria was, I didn't want a boss girl. I wanted a woman that would enter my frame and be a complement to my life, not complicate it, sort of thing. And that's difficult for guys like me to find today, because a lot of women are, the boss girl sort of crowd, and they're like, I need a man like a fish needs a bicycle, which is funny, because usually as soon as something breaks or they need help with something that masculine, skills are applied to, then they're now, the little girl that needs help, sort of thing. So it's an interesting dynamic. And I think it's difficult for men to deal with. But I think at the same time, as you're a woman and you're navigating this, you've been told your entire life to be strong and independent, right? To be successful, to be, to get the degrees and chase excellence and all that sort of stuff. But that's not what men find attractive. That's not what most men seek in a woman. Although there is a contingent of men out there that are still of the belief that men and women are equal, and that we should share exact responsibilities. And Monday nights you take care of the kids, and Tuesday nights I'll take them to swimming classes, sort of thing. And Wednesday nights I'll do the cooking and cleaning, and Thursday nights you do the cooking and cleaning, and Friday nights date night, sort of thing. So those things are applied a lot to life. I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I'm just saying that for me, with the kind of guy that I am, I would be the leader. I'd be the alpha male. I would be the one that would, basically set the tone for the relationship, and she would enter it, benefit from it, but also be a compliment to it. Like, when I go out for dinner, my girlfriend never pays. When I travel, like, I just came back from Mexico, so when I travel, she doesn't pay, right? Like, the flight's taken care of, the hotel. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, that's the kind of guy that I am, and that's the kind of girl that I want. And as you can call it as a consequence of that, but as an outcome of that, she prepares wonderful meals. She loves me. She's accommodating. If I'm sick, she'll take care of me. If I need her to pick something up, when she's heading over, she'll pick it up. I'm not going to do that for you. It's, she's pleasant. You know what I mean?
Well, you said the word equal, and you implied, you said that, there's an idea that men and women are equal, which you're implying that they're not.
They're different. There's a difference between fair. Equality different and difference.
Fair. Difference is fair.
Anybody watching this right now knows that men and women are different. We look completely different, right? Yeah, men and women look completely different. We have different skill sets. Men have like a third more upper body strength than women have, right? There's a reason why men go to war. Up. Yeah, there's a reason why men go to war. There's a reason why when a transgender male competes in a female sport, he destroys and dominates all women,
exactly.
Right? Like, men and women are different.
It's not fair.
But fairness, now, that's interesting that you brought that up. Now, fairness is usually, I find anyway, with most people, it's like, well, that's not fair. And it's like, no, men and women are still different. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be fair. Like, fairness in a relationship, I think, is a contributor or a catalyst to the failure of that relationship, because nothing in life is fair. But I mean, if life was fair, like in your racing career, everybody would be on the podium. But no, there's 1 through 20 on the grid, right? That's how it works. That's how the competition ends at the finish line. But today, fairness is basically, it's infused in the fabric of society, even in elementary schools, because all children are given a participation trophy. There's no first place anymore in many sports.
I mean, I agree, and that's all bullshit. Like, there's a winner and there's a loser. You better learn the lesson when you're 6 instead of when you're 36 and you're, miserable and your life's going nowhere because you have no coping skills. Like,
Right.
learn that lesson young. But I think that it's just getting stuck on that equal word. Like, we're equal but different. Is
Yeah.
that what you could agree to?
I would agree with that. Men and women are equal in society, but we're different.
Exactly. And in a
Right?
relationship too, equal but different.
Yeah.
And that
I'm
really
I'm
it's
I'm
about,
still I'm still going to be the one that's called upon to defend you in a relationship. When the bad guy breaks in the house in the middle of the night and the window smashes on the floor and you hear a bang, I'm not going to elbow you and say, "Okay, well you get this one because I got the last one." I'm the one that's going to jump out of bed and put myself in harm's way.
so
So
is
I don't think that they're fair inherently in the way that you're describing, like, men and women are equal and fair and all that sort of stuff. It's like, no, we're different, and that's okay. I don't know
yeah,
that I want to apply equality or fairness to a relationship because it doesn't make sense to me. I wouldn't expect a woman to stand close to the road. I wouldn't expect a
sure.
woman to jump in front of somebody that was trying to rob us, right?
Right. Right. But I know, but I think you're thinking that fair, meaning like it's tit for tat. It's
Well,
all
you're
this
saying
at least
equal
equally.
is, yeah, it's like the whole equality thing. Like, I don't think that we're equal. I think that we're different, and that's
Yes,
okay.
but equal in importance.
Yes,
Or
absolutely.
do you think that men get a little bit ahead because they're the ones that ultimately will be the one that has to risk their life, let's say?
No, men are the disposable sex. Women are the protected sex. That's why when the ship goes down, it's always women and children first. I mean, it's always been that way. Men have always been disposable throughout society, and women have always been protected. If there is wars, and by the way, we live in one of the most peaceful times, in human history. But if there's a
Yeah.
war and two warring
Mhm.
tribes, get together, who gets killed off? All the men. And when the dominating side wins, any children or teens that weren't either brought into their armies or brought into slavery were killed off that were male. But who was protected? The women. And that's where the notion of war brides comes from, because I mean, like, even as far back as World War II, war brides were still very, very common. When the Germans invaded France and Normandy and Holland and, like, all the Dutch people sort of thing, all of the women that complied and entered the frame of the German soldiers were mistreated at the end of the war. They were brought out into town squares and their heads were shaved, and they were shamed for sleeping with the German soldiers and abandoning their families and their husbands and things like that. So women have always been protected and brought into the winner's sort of circle, and that's why women are very adaptive in society. That's why, see, women don't understand this, but men have a very hard time with breakups, right? We don't get it. It's like, we just want to get an answer, and if you get an answer, then you're deemed a stalker. But if a woman, gets dumped, then she wants endless meetings. There's emails, there's text messages, she needs closure, all this sort of thing. Like, women are generally a lot more adaptive, and they can move on very quicker from relationship to relationship. And I think that's because of the war bride dynamic,
Really?
where throughout history they've been conditioned
Hmm.
to adapt to new circumstances and environments, because if they didn't, they would die.
I don't agree with that.
It's true, though.
I think it's because women face their feelings and emotions because they can't help it. It's part of our nature. And that men traditionally in a breakup usually go out and start dating someone right away, or they start sleeping with other people, they distract themselves. And women go through the emotions and they mourn and they cry and they're miserable, and
Mm-hmm.
and then they work through it, where a man's is sort of deferred or delayed or pushed down, and
That's not what I've
that
seen.
never works either.
Yeah, that's not what I've seen. I mean, the amount of, like, I've done consults with thousands of guys now, many of them private, some of them even on my podcast channel, on my Monday night show. And the amount of men that have, like, there's this condition called one-itis. It's funny, they make up all
That
these terms in the mano swamp, and there's this condition called one-itis, which is basically defined as an unhealthy attachment to one woman. And this this happens when a guy gets dumped, betrayed, cheated on, and he's left in this broken state where he doesn't get it. I did the right thing. I took care of her. I took care of her kids. I, insert all the things that were done, like all the reasoning behind it, and she's off already sleeping with a bunch of other guys. I don't see that dynamic, happening with women where they mourn as long as they say that they do. And historically speaking, again, back to the war bride dynamic, think about it. Throughout history, when men were killed off, what were women's options? They didn't they didn't have the resources or the capacity to usually take care of themselves. So they would have to adapt to whatever was conquering them, whatever was dominating them. It's also one of the reasons why, back then, the nomadic hunter gatherer sort of people that we were, women were generally shared. The Bob, Bill, and Patrick go out to hunt, the saber-toothed tiger, and only Bob comes back. Well, guess what? Bob's taking care of everybody else's family now too, and he's probably sleeping with the wives as well, right? That's just the way that things work, because men were always treated as disposable. You don't like that, though. I can see that.
Yeah, I just don't agree. What about the perspective of vulnerability? Like, there's such a movement in culture for men to get more vulnerable.
No,
I'm gonna guess you think that's some bullshit right there. So I'm curious what that means, and because we're talking about emotions, and so like I do disagree. I think that women process a relationship quicker and get out of that emotion earlier because they've dealt with it. They've gone into the depths where I don't think a man does. And I think this sort of plays into this area of vulnerability of a man. Who does a man talk to? I mean, look, like I talk to my girlfriends, like I have therapists, but I also have girlfriends, which play like therapists almost. Mm-hmm. And it just takes talking things through. And I don't know how a man operates in those spaces. And so, what are your thoughts on the area of vulnerability and men?
Yeah, men have been told to be more vulnerable, haven't they? How does it sit with you and your girlfriends, though, when a guy, turns into a total pussy?
I think there's definitely a fine line. There's a fine line between a pussy and a man that owns his feelings. There's the layer deeper, right? There's the actual true feeling of how you are. Like, to me, like an alpha man is someone who just knows that they're strong, knows what they has their strong beliefs and believes in what they're capable of, and they don't have to go spreading the words all around. They just know it. So there's like an inner energy. And so I think that it's that layer deeper where a man can be honest and share and connect and tell you the truth about something that he might be feeling and completely own that with confidence. And then there's some that don't, and it's the truth of the energy versus what the words are. Sometimes I think that are the real energy is the real truth. That's why some people have charisma and some people are, draw people in. It's like an energy. It's not, you can have two people saying the same things and one of them actually believes it and the other one doesn't. And those are two different realities.
Yeah, I think what you just defined is that women like men that just get it. You don't want to tell guys how to solve that problem. You don't want to solve the problems like women aren't generally kingmakers. They want to be with a king. You know what I mean? Like they want to be with a guy that's got it figured out. So when it comes to that feeling emotions or being vulnerable, your dog dies, be emotional. You lose your parents, fine, be emotional. It's required. You have to grieve through that part. Brenda from accounting was mean to you today. You don't want to hear about it.
I mean, personally, for my friends, if Brenda at accounting was mean to one of my girlfriends, I'd be like, fucking get over it.
But most women would want to have a big conversation about that. Let's get together. We'll pour some wine. Let's bust out the cheese, get the charcuterie board going. Let's talk about Brenda and what a bitch she is, sort of thing.
What about just being heard?
Be heard. Absolutely. But I mean, the point that we're making about this concept is that women want men to just get it. And it's okay to be vulnerable in certain circumstances. It's okay to cry in certain circumstances that are warranted. But most men get emotional and get vulnerable and cry over the littlest things, which turn women off. Men don't understand this, that women want men that just get it, that are competent, that can solve problems, that can get things done, that can make it rain. They don't want to deal with a crybaby. One of the things you hear a lot of women say, and after I got divorced, I was dating a lot of divorced women as well, because I was, looking at women around my same age group. And one of the questions I was always asking, so why'd you get divorced? So what happened? And I heard a lot of, he was a big baby. He couldn't keep a job down. He was such a pussy. He wasn't a man. He was a big beta, big crybaby, like all of these things. And it's like, that's interesting. But who was the guy that you married? Right? Like, did something change? And one of the things that happens to men in long-term relationships I've noticed is this concept that I call the Pacific. Sorry, it's not the Pacific. It's the betatization through 1,000 concessions. You see what I'm saying? So it starts with something like, "Hey, Rich, don't brush your teeth over there. You're going to get toothpaste on the carpet." Then it goes to make sure you put the white socks in the white hamper and the black socks in the black hamper. Then it goes.
Come on, now that one just makes sense.
Let's go vegan together. And then it continues to go concession after concession after concession.
Sure.
And the thing is that women, truthfully, they don't want men to make that many concessions. I understand the organized part. Like, I understand, the laundry thing and all that sort of stuff. But as soon as you start stamping everything, yes, and then you give her the stamp and she starts stamping everything, yes, her interest in that guy declines dramatically.
Agreed. Because here's the deal. He doesn't know who the fuck he is.
Right.
And do you like a girl to not know who the fuck she is either? Like, don't you want a girl to contest with every now and again? Don't you want a little bit of a challenge? I mean, there's like a perfect ratio. It's like a 1-to-5 ratio. I'm trying to think. It's a Hoffman. No, it's I'm trying to think. It's a marriage couple that researches marriage, but there's a perfect ratio of disagreements that need to happen in a relationship. And
is there?
I don't know what your thoughts are on Jordan Peterson, but he'll talk about that too. You don't want easy. You want some level of challenge that is required for the relationship to be strong. You don't want to push over. Do you? Do you want to push over, girl?
I don't want to come home to a disagreeable, bossy, bitchy woman. I want to come home to a loving woman.
Of course, a woman wants a loving man, but you can't tell me that you want a woman to make 1,000 concessions for you and that you'd still respect her.
I would.
For what?
Because she's not a man. Men and women are different. Remember that. We talked about that before. Men and women are different. Just because I think the great lie that a lot of women have subscribed to when they're drunk on this Kool-Aid is they've been told to behave like men. Oh, you have to be somewhat disagreeable. There's a certain ratio because Jordan Peterson
Definitely not.
said so.
That's not true. That's not true.
Is it?
It's not true. That's just called autonomy.
Is it though?
Yeah, absolutely. Because no two people are identical.
Right.
But it's not like we could all just agree on everything. So just like you're going to know who you are and I would know who I was, like you're not always going to agree. So you can respectfully disagree or you can have the discussion, change your mind perhaps. I actually, like, part of doing this interview is I was hoping you could change my mind on some things because because then I know I've learned something. Because I'm open-minded. That's like the fascination is that, cool, teach me something new. But I know I have my convictions about myself. I know who I am, and I'm not just going to bend over in every single category so a man can feel good about himself or so he cannot be challenged. Yeah,
but believe it or not, he's not trying to feel good about himself by not arguing with you. He just doesn't want to argue with you. He just wants peace in his life. Right now, I get that not many men are competent and deserve a peaceful life. I understand that. There's a lot of losers out there, a lot of weak men that get challenged by women for a reason. I get it. I fully understand that. But a guy like me, I don't want a confrontational woman in my life.
Right.
It's not needed and it's unnecessary. And I'm competent enough and I'm successful enough and influential enough that I don't need to put up with that sort of thing. So while I get that a lot of women have been told to be strong and independent and decisive. And, to some degree, like women, I think today are more disagreeable than they ever have been in history. Yeah, but I don't think that it's because we're being told to. It's because people are getting more confident with who they are. Well, it's because women don't need men anymore. Nobody needs anybody. Don't they? Do they? I don't know. That's a great question. What's the point of a relationship? What's the point? I love the question. What is the point of being in a relationship? You're essentially talking about not being challenged, but my experience and all of the people that I know and the books that I read and the shows that I watch, relationship is the greatest place to grow because it's going to challenge you. It can't, but not because of the challenge. Having challenges, like I have challenges in life, Danica. I run businesses, I have investments, I have real estate. I have supercars that break down all the time. Like I have enough challenges.
But nothing taps into your emotions like a relationship.
No, no, that's wrong.
Really?
Successful men that are doing something with their life do not want disagreeable women in their life. They want a complement to their life. They want a woman that adds value to their life. They don't want to fight and argue over, well, this weekend we're going to go shopping for curtains and they have to look like this. And it's like, after I've just been busy all day doing all this shit, putting out fires, you're going to yell at me about curtains now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a shitty challenge. That's a shitty challenge.
That's what a lot of guys are dealing with, though.
The real challenge is the getting triggered part. The real challenge
Believe
is
it or not, Danica, there are good relationships out there where there aren't constant challenges, there aren't constant disagreements.
Yeah,
There's a compliment to one another's lives, sort of thing. One of the things that I wanted to mention as well, too, because you brought up Jordan Peterson, is, I think he does more good than he does harm. And I think you've had him on a podcast, have you?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. So, he's an interesting guy, but I think that he gets marriage wrong. I think he gets relationships wrong. There was an advertisement that I saw on the Daily Wire, and they were pumping out this thing about Jordan Peterson's 3-part series on marriage. And I thought, that's interesting, because I have a chapter in my book on why smart men don't marry anymore. So I went and bought, the subscription. I watched it, and I did a video podcast on it. You can go find it on my podcast channel, the Unplugged Alpha. But the thing that he gets wrong is that his entire notion about a good marriage, about a good relationship, by the way, he's only had one. Okay. His entire notion is built around negotiating in that relationship. And what you're basically talking about is negotiating desire. I'll do the chore play. I'll do the dishes, put them away, take care of the laundry, run the kids to the soccer meet and the swim lessons, all that sort of stuff. And I need you to do this, that, and the other thing, sort of thing. It's like, you sort of start negotiating back and forth with this and that, or I'll give you this, or you can hang up that picture if I give you these curtains, sort of thing. And it's like, he wants to continuously encourage guys to negotiate in a relationship. And I don't think that that's a good idea, because you can have a good relation. Trust me, because I'm in one right now. You can have a good, like I've been in shit relationships where you're constantly fighting and there's all this, head butting sort of, I was married to a lawyer. I've dated a lot of successful women. Okay. Lawyers, accountants, stuff like this. So you can be in a good relationship and not have to negotiate anything in the relationship. She has genuine burning desire for me. Right. And I feel the same way about her, and it's organic, and I don't have to fight over anything like that. He doesn't even talk about basic concepts like vetting women for marriage. Like, let's take a look at any red flags that might exist in her life that we might not want to invite into our life to complicate it unnecessarily. So, like, his stuff is pretty good, and he definitely does more good than bad. But I really think he gets like this notion of just ramming men into the slaughterhouse of marriage, which is what happens to most guys. Believe it or not, here are the stats. So they've done these surveys, and over an average, I think it was 8.1 years. Take a guess how many couples were still in love, defined as in love. Like what percentage?
30%.
13.
13.
Take a guess how many defined their relationship as blissful, like we're blissfully in love.
Like 3%.
Exactly. That's bad.
That's terrible.
That's horrible.
What the fuck is wrong?
And why would you, as a guy, sign up for something that would look like marriage?
Oh, girl, you are acting like it's only guys that are miserable.
I'm not saying it's just guys, but the risk factor that most guys have, which is exclusionary to you because you're successful in your own right from your own career. But most guys, like Kevin from the VP department of the sales team, conveniently almost always, will be making $280,000 a year, will conveniently marry, Becky, who's a $40,000 a year hairdresser. Right. So the risk for guys is they're getting themselves into a situation or an environment where it's now their entire wealth and their future wealth potentially, and access to their kids if they have them, because women still get the vast majority of custody orders, is very, very high risk and potentially low reward for them in a marriage. But for women, it's high reward and low risk, because they get the custody, because they are always taken care of with family law, because they can pull the false domestic violence trigger, sort of thing. So there's a lot of moving parts to this that most women don't get until they finally get, sort of thing. Right. And I'm not saying that any of this, needs to change, or we should rally the troops or anything like that. again, I'm the enjoy the decline guy, right? So I'm just like, draw a perimeter, watch them do what they want to do, and I'm going to protect mine. And there's us versus them sort of thing. So it's a very interesting dynamic when you take a look at it for what it really is. Like we said earlier, there's truth and lies.
So what's the point of a relationship?
Well, the point of marriage, if we're going to bring it to,
well, you don't believe in marriage though, right?
I don't. No.
Okay. And I'm totally like, I have been questioning that institution for years now. Like, do you really need marriage to make this thing real? I mean,
well, the thing about marriage that most people don't understand, there's a really good book by Stephanie Kuntz called The History of Marriage. You should check it out. And the TLDR version of it is that the reason why we've been getting married for, hundreds of years and all this sort of stuff, ever since the advent of agriculture and all that, is the acquisition of in-laws, right? So I'm successful as a farmer. My brother is a blacksmith. My other brother is a teacher. My dad is a law enforcement guy. Your side of the family, you got a chemist. You got somebody that's, mob boss sort of thing. Like, you would blend the families, and you would then have the acquisition of in-laws. And guess what? Now you're taking care of your own. But that's changed in
that was where
history.
It was community based, where it was like
now it's the state that is the head of the household, right?
Yeah.
The family is no longer the head of the household. The man is no longer head of the household. The state is the head of the household. And in fact, you could argue that women have all the power with the state behind them because of the way that family law is written and the advantage of being the mother and usually being the lower income earner in most relationships. I guess, again, with the exception generally of somebody successful and accomplished as yourself, sort of thing. So, what's the point of marriage today? I don't see any point in it, right? If my girlfriend said, well, if we don't get married, then I'm going to leave. I'll just, okay, it was nice knowing you. Right. I have to surrender to that fact because I've acknowledged that it's too risky and it's too difficult for me to go through that again. Right now, do you want to have kids? I think that a 2-parent household is the best way to do that. Do you need to get married to do that? Not really. Can you get married if you really want to? Can you lower the risk by vetting, who's going to potentially be the mother of your kids? Can you? There's lots of things that you can do to sort of improve the odds of not throwing your life down the toilet bowl, so to speak. But, we're in a very different and difficult time when it comes to both the sexes. Like, I understand men's point of view very well. And talking to you about this, from the female perspective, I get that you say certain things and why you say them. But again, I still think that men and women are better together than they are apart. It's just, we have to work together and stop trying to work against each other.
So interesting, because there can be so many expressions of the same truth, which is what I totally believe in, which is we're being called to honor each other in our differences, truly respect them, honor them. And if a man can pick me up and hold me and respect all the things that I can do, and I can do the same for his talents and abilities, then when you come together, that's much more magical than someone being offended, someone being triggered, someone thinking that they should or shouldn't have to do something. It's more about like, what are you really good at? What are you really good at? And let's be freaking awesome together.
And then how do you infuse and blend all of that into our biological imperative that we've evolved to be? Because that's difficult, right? Because then you start including things and other elements into that relationship that most people don't even understand.
I think that when it comes to marriage and what you were just talking about, again, I have a lot of the same curiosities and thoughts about it all. But when it comes down to like squeezing that last little bit out, what it feels like is if you believe that this person is your person so wholeheartedly and you're so in love, then getting married is like, oh, well, sure, I guess if you want, like, we're going to be together forever anyway. This is how much I love you. Mm-hmm. And so there is something to be said about culture's perception, including mine, and I question marriage, about the all-in quality of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Look, man, we could spend hours on this topic of marriage and the dynamics and the opportunities and the risk factors and all that sort of stuff. It's a multi-layer, multifaceted discussion that could go for quite a long time. But I mean, like, the reality of it all, I find, is that, look, if you can have a good long-term relationship, then that's great. But I still believe that there's certain boundaries as a guy, and I'm speaking from the man's perspective, right? I think there's certain boundaries that you have to set within the terms of that relationship before you would consider inviting her closer into your life. whether that's a live-in, situation, or if you wanted to call it marriage or living under the state's rule or, guise of marriage, whatever that happens to be. It's we live in difficult times. This is not our grandparents' era.
There's, I think, a lot of magical things happening too, which I think that we're in a time where things can be rewritten. So if you were to sort of deduce things down to a couple of things for each side, for each gender, for a man and a woman to embody moving forward that would create better relationships, what would that be?
The optimal situation is having a society of strong, masculine, competent, resourceful, successful men. Now, I get not everybody can be at the top of the hierarchy, right? There's worker bees, there's drivers of the bus and passengers on the bus, sort of thing. Like, all that notion has been, explained a million times. But the best experience that you're going to have as a guy, in my opinion, is doing that work. I always say, do the work, and people are like, well, what does do the work mean? It means do the work, right? Are you the best version of yourself? Are you in the healthiest body? Are you as successful as you can be? Do you have a great network of friends? I always say your network is your net worth. Like, you could take my resources, my money, my cars, my house, my assets, take them all away from me, leave me with my network, and I will be back with all of that stuff within about a year or two, right? Like, so, become that guy, right? Like, do the work on yourself. Men, again, are viewed by women as success objects, and women are viewed by men as beauty objects. So my advice for women is different. I have a daughter. My advice to her is going to be preserve your value. Don't be promiscuous. I was having this conversation, and somebody said to me, like, what do you think the best way is for a woman to find a high value guy? Because there's this notion of high value, going out there right now. You've probably heard it. He's a high value guy. She's a high value. Okay, whatever. So what's the best way for a woman to find, to get married and have a high value guy in her life and have a family? I thought, okay, well, that's an interesting question. So let's think about that. What do high value guys respect and value? Well, women that are preserved, right? Like they haven't run around. They haven't been with 100 guys. They didn't, like, there's not Instagram and TikTok videos of her in Cabo, in Tulum, in Cancun, at Ibiza, all these foam cannon parties in Vegas. Like, I'm not looking at that, right? So, okay, so there's that. So, preserve your value that way. Obviously be beautiful, be feminine. And I would then say, what? Go get a job in high ticket sales, sell private jets, sell high end real estate, sell, you want to get in rooms with successful, high value men. That's probably what you're going to have to do. Right. So, I mean, that would be optimal, I think, for a woman in today's world, but the dynamic's going to be different, for everybody. Like, the conversation, I think, is going to be different, and every parent's going to have a different conversation with their kids. But at the end of the day, you're never going to get away from the fact that women view men as success objects and men view women as beauty objects. You can get upset about it, and you may not like that jagged little pill, but that's the reality. Like, that's why Leonardo DiCaprio ends up breaking up with a girl every time she hits 26 or whatever the number is. 25. And then he gets shamed. And why doesn't he just grow up and find a woman his own age?
He doesn't need to.
Exactly. Because he doesn't need to, because he has that option in his life. Right. So, that's what men default to when they have the capacity. Now the problem, okay, so what if we take the Leonardo DiCaprio thing out of the equation and we're not dealing with a high value guy because he can? Right? Like, what if you take the average guy that's, Kevin, the VP of sales sort of thing, makes $280,000 a year, right? He's not Leonardo DiCaprio. He's not going to get, young women, dump them at 25, get another one, and do it repeatedly over the next couple of decades, right? Okay, so now he's got to be that guy. Now he's going to find, a woman that he's going to want to, get into a relationship with, and she has to find that guy that she wants to be in a relationship with. The interesting thing is, though, when you start paying attention to what women's demands are today, they have a fascinating long laundry list of demands in what they expect from a guy, right? He's got to be competent. He's got to be tall. He's got to be funny. He's got to be fit. Did you ever hear about this? There's this website called the Female Delusion Calculator.
No, that sounds terrible.
Okay, so somebody put this together. I think one of these black pill guys, sort of thing. But anyway, they went through the statistical data in North America, because women have this long list of demands. Like, for you, you're how tall?
5'1".
Okay, so you're short then. So
I'm set. Any guy.
yeah, so like any guy will work for you, right? So, but most women today,
I do like really tall guys though, for some reason.
of course, of course. So like, do you have a line in the sand? Like you like 6 foot tall, 6'2"?
No, I don't care.
You just got to be taller than you.
Yeah.
Taller than me in heels is Danica standard. So there you go, exactly. Guys. Okay. So there's that standard. But women beyond that usually have the standard of he's got to be 6 foot tall. He's got to have a 6-figure income. He's got to be competent. He's got to be funny. He's got to be able to fix things. He's got to be strong and alpha and virtuous, but he also has to have a soft side too, as well. Right. And, you know, they'll keep going down this long laundry. He's got to have 6-pack abs. He's got to have broad shoulders. He can't have hair on his chest. He's got to have hair on his head. You know, like he's got to like all of these things. And the funny thing is on this female delusion calculator, there's only, I think, 4 elements there. He's single or married. He's over 6 foot. His income and physical appearance. So whether he's fat or if he's fit, right? Okay. And when you punch in the data and it spits it out, if you're looking at a guy that's say 40 years old, take a guess what percentage of the male population in North America is over 6 foot tall, has a 6-figure income, is not obese, and not married.
10%?
Less. It's like less than 2%.
Or the 6s? I just heard about that too.
Yeah, the 6'6" is something that I got introduced to at a party like 20 years ago. I told the story in a video once. I'll tell it to you and your audience again. So this party I was at, this friend of mine's wife said, Rich, you got it all. I got to set you up with my girlfriend. You probably got the 6'6" all this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, what the hell's a 6'6"? Like, what does that even mean? She's like, 6 foot tall, 600 horsepower car, 6-figure income, 6-pack abs, 6 months out of a relationship, and 6 inches in the pants. And I'm like, you don't know the last one, but yeah, thank you. But that's just the starting point today, right? Like that doesn't even begin to qualify most men. So women have these incredibly high standards of men, like these big asks. And I think that if they're looking for a relationship, a lot of women today kind of need to check themselves and take a look in the mirror, because even that 3% of guys out there that would qualify to meet you, you're not even close to what they're looking for, right? I mean, if you got, 50 grand in debt and a beat up old 15-year-old Honda and 3 kids from 3 different fathers, I'm not interested. Nothing, like not even a date. Goodbye.
Right. Okay. Well, so, what are the big asks of a girl then?
That's what we just talked about. Is that big long list that they have, right?
No, you're like a man for a woman. What does a man look at and they go, if she's got these things going on?
Yeah. No, that's really funny. A friend of mine once said that men's standards are so low that she's just sexually available. That's it.
I mean, there's some truth to that, I'm sure.
That's the biggest part of it. Now,
beyond you don't keep that one around forever. So
no, but beyond that, if we're going to date and do things, it's like, look, here's my life. And I'm going to invite you into it. Do you like I like doing supercar rallies, with my friends, and I like having, my gal in the passenger seat. She comes along and they sit around with all the wives and girlfriends and we laugh and we have a good time. Sort of like, these are the things that I like to do. And if she's going to enter my frame and want to be a part of that and come along for the ride, then that might be interesting to me. Right. But if it's, like the latter, where it's 3 kids from 3 different fathers and a bunch of debt and a busted ass car and all kinds of problems, it's like, don't make your problems my problems. I'm just not going to deal with that. And that's a lot of what guys deal. Like, men complain today relentlessly, perpetually. If you go to my Twitter, then usually at least once a week, I get something that, people DM me and there's a post and it's like a screenshot of some gal's dating profile. And she's like, if you're just a player or a F boy, swipe left. I'm 6 months pregnant. I've got 2 kids already, 3 cats. And I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I'm looking for a guy that's looking for a serious relationship. And it's like, what loser would sign up for that?
No,
life?
Why do you start there? Like, what's wrong with her that she's starting there? Is a good question.
Common. It's very common. So that's the starting point for a lot of women today when it comes to, like hitting on guys, is they just air their dirty laundry. Like, women now on TikTok, I've noticed this trend now on TikTok, and I posted this in the last week or so. There's a video that I came across. They're airing their notch counts on social media, and they're telling the world how many guys they've been with, that it didn't work out,
for anyone,
and it's not their fault. right? It's like, oh my God, this is where we are today, that we've reached
I mean,
this
this is
level
the
of
bullshit
transparency.
female empowerment stuff that I just don't agree with. Like, that's not cool for anybody, either way.
That's
Like, no
where it
guy should
goes.
say that. No girl should say
And guys
that.
shouldn't say that either, right?
Agreed. So I've heard that for the most part, men want to feel like they want to be respected.
Respect is huge.
And needed.
But if you're respected, then you're loved automatically.
Yeah.
I believe anyway. But there's women that disrespect men continuously in front of the public. You know, when you see it, you can't unsee it. You know, I was at the grocery store the other day. She's pregnant. She's got 2 kids in the buggy, and the skinny, goofy guy is in the diaper aisle, and he puts the diapers in the buggy, and she yells at him, "That's not the one you got to put in there, Bob. You're such an idiot. What's the matter with you? You're retarded." It's like, just put my head down and keep going, sort of thing.
Exhausting.
Right? But that's the life that a lot of guys sign up for today, because they don't have, 1, better options, 2, they're not good at vetting women. The inventory, the available women out there that are of some quality standard that are worth inviting to your life are down dramatically. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to this, but this isn't a Danica Patrick problem though, right? Like this isn't something that you have to deal with, obviously.
I'm severe. It's totally challenged.
What sort of problems do you have in
hard
dating
it is to
and
find
love?
a guy that can stay confident, like with someone that's wealthy and well-known? That's very hard.
Yeah. You're going to find that they men want to feel like they're respected and needed. And again, because women are hypergamous, and you want to look up and across to a guy, so you have to be able to look up at him. Like, you want to be with a giant, right? So how hard is it for a successful race car driver that hosts TV shows, has her own podcast, done well in life, to find a guy like that? And a lot of these guys, by the way, they're not necessarily looking for that, right? They're usually looking for younger women. Like, they don't really care about a woman's accomplishments. There's no guy that's ever said, again, look at the degree on her wall. Mm-hmm. Look at that. That's hot.
No. But the problem is that it's triggering. Like, because it's not that I can't respect him, even if he makes less or is less successful or whatever those things are. It's that he doesn't respect himself in my company.
Well, that's a big turnoff for women, right?
I mean, I think in general for men, that is the problem. I don't think I'm not right. Is that not?
Where do you live on the West Coast?
Huh?
Where do you live in the West Coast?
Scottsdale.
Oh, Arizona. Okay. So, I mean, that's not California, no. Right? Like,
it's becoming California because they're all coming here, but
right. Okay. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, you're going to have more like sort of stronger guys in a state like Arizona than you will in a place like California. But I get it. Like, it's definitely hard for women. Like, I know a lot of women like you, right? That are up there. They've done something with their life. They don't need a guy, right? Like, their life is set. Everything is good. It's like, if he comes in my life and he looks good with me when we go out, sort of thing, we have a good time, and that's awesome. But there's a lot of women in your position where they end up settling. And they end up settling for like the best that they can get, sort of thing. And even though, it happens and it goes that route, they're generally not happy, is what I find. Right. And then if they don't need the guy, then they'll just let him go. Right. Because they're better alone than they are with somebody that's an anchor in their life. We have anchors in sales in life, obviously. And, when our sales fill with wind, they take you to the next port of call and you have, a great time, sort of thing. And there's anchors that hold you back. And I think women are fastidious when it comes to their level of tolerance for guys they can't look up to, that they don't see as a giant, that they don't want to, that they won't respect, sort of thing. So yeah. It's going to be difficult for somebody like you in your position to find somebody that's of that caliber and higher, that will just say, hey, babe, we'll see you later on after you host that show tonight.
Yeah. Or is not that caliber, but can respect it and not be triggered or not feel insecure. So, okay, I've taken a lot of your time. What advice would you have? You can give it for men and women or separately. What advice would you have that would help the person be led into the right relationship?
Well, it's different advice again for men and women.
That's fine. Then go ahead and separate them out then.
For women, well, I'm going to describe the kind of woman that I want. I've already kind of done this, throughout our conversation. But for me, as a leader, a guy that is competent, successful, all those things. Again, I want a woman that's a complement to my life, right? Like I want her to add value. I don't want to come, and deal with a disagreeable, woman that's going to create havoc or potential difficulty in my life, invite chaos, invite, unnecessary nuances, sort of thing. I don't want to deal with the unhappy or the unlucky. You know what I mean? So, for a woman, like she needs to be that gal. That's the sort of gal that I would look for. But that's not what most women are today, and that's not what most women are hearing as far as influences. Like the biggest influences out there, like who are they? Lizzo, you're beautiful at any size. Oh, please. Kim Kardashian, like she's a huge icon out there. I mean, feel bad for Kanye, but Kanye, he hasn't got his head screwed on right either. You got guys like Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. Oh my God, the slap. Like, dude, you let your wife sleep with your son's best friend and then you aired it on TV in front of the world. Right. So these sorts of things when I was a kid were unheard of, but this is normalized in society today. So you got to get away from all of that nonsense, from all of that garbage. And, if you're a woman, you want to identify the kind of guy that you want and then be the woman that he wants to be with. And I'm telling you right now, as a guy that's at that level, and I have a lot of, friends in my network that are very successful entrepreneurs or 8-9 figure guys. We do fun and cool stuff together. Many of them are in long-term relationships. And to be honest with you, they're really not that interested in other women, right? Like they're fine. Other women pose extra problems for them, unnecessary problems, sort of thing. So a lot of these guys are already taken too, so that's the problem as well. So rather than spending your 20s partying, getting 17 degrees, on the wall, I think that your best use of your youth, which is when you're most valuable to men, is to develop yourself into that woman that guy that you want to be with is. If that's the guy that you want to be with happens to be, you know what I mean? If you want to get degrees and climb the corporate ladder and do all that stuff, that's fine. But don't be surprised, if you're 41 with 3 cats and you want to have a family and no guy is interested in you, or you can't conceive because it's too late, sort of thing, right? Like there's like
I'm almost 41 with 2 dogs.
Well, men and women are on different time scales, right? There's medical miracles today that would still allow you to have a family, obviously.
I did freeze my eggs when I was 33.
Okay. So, I mean, like you could still have children, obviously, right?
Yep.
But I mean, if your goal right now is is your goal a family? Like, what is your goal today? Boyfriend, family?
No, I don't.
Doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter. Adventure.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. I mean, you want to get clear on your goals, if
exactly.
you want to achieve them.
Do.
So if your goal is to have a family, to have children, then you should be explicit about only doing things that lead towards that. If your goal is adventure, then why did you bother freeze your eggs?
Security, safety blanket, safety net.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just insurance.
Yeah. So I think you need to get clear on what your agenda and what your goals are and really stick to that. And again, understand evolutionary psychology and what men and women are evolved to do and be in relationships, and how relationships do work, and what women respond to, what men respond to. And if you want to get a good response, you have to feed that, sort of thing.
All right. If men could do one thing to make themselves into the man that is consistent and attracts the right kind of partner, girlfriend, wife, whatever that is, what would it be? What would you recommend to them?
It's nothing else other than chase excellence in your life. Make something out of yourself. There's too many guys today. I think that are too, it's probably the first time in the podcast that I said it, actually. There's too many guys today.
Kind of, as a female, I don't know.
No, but you haven't said I feel that much. I've been listening to you. You started with I think, but there's a lot of guys today, I think, that are too compliant because they've been told just be yourself. And just be yourself is the worst advice I think guys can take. just be average. No woman wants just average. Even the gal that's pregnant with the 2 kids from the 2 different dads, who's 26, that just got right with God after partying through her 20s, even she doesn't want average.
No. But yourself is not average. That's not the same thing.
Right.
Be yourself, is own who you are, and that will make that everyone is unique and different. And if you can just own who you are, then you can be great.
Right. But the interpretation that most men have today when it comes to just be yourself is just be a nice guy. If you like playing video games, that's good enough. If you like being 300 pounds at 5'7", that's good enough because you're just being yourself. Right. And this is what guys have been hearing. And that's not what women are attracted to. That's not what women want to have families with. Exactly.
They haven't done the work. So do the work.
Yeah.
All right, Rich, thank you so much. That was very interesting. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your perspective, and I'm going to keep watching.
You got it. Thanks for having me, Danica.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.